Good evening and welcome to the Matthews Town Board meeting. Tonight we're going to start with our pre-meeting. I'm going to dispense with the introductions until our 7 o'clock meeting. But in our 5:30 meeting, we're going to discuss employment, hiring practices, and recruitment and retention policies. And Hazen, you want to open this? Or
I guess the only thing I would say, Mayor and members of the board, is, we spent a little bit of time recently just talking about the town of Matthews and kind of our diversity. And I think it's been somewhat of an interest to the board to find out, like, what's the hiring practices look like in Matthews? And I think Tanya's going to lead us through that discussion.
Okay, Tanya.
All right, thank you. So tonight I am going to discuss with you our hiring and recruitment practices. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see my PowerPoint. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So if you have any questions along the way, of course, feel free to stop me and we'll just jump right into it. So first of all, what's HR's philosophy around the way we hire? So basically at the town of Matthews, we believe in creating a diverse and inclusive workforce where our employees' differences are respected, their individual contributions are valued, and their perspectives and knowledge are used to enhance the service we provide to our citizens of our town. No employee or applicant of employment shall suffer discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, genetic information, military membership, gender identity, sexual orientation, or marital status. So this is it's the philosophy that HR uses in all of our hiring. So just to set a little bit of groundwork, we always hire the most qualified applicant. We do not consider race, color, national origin, sex, or any other protected classification when making our hiring decisions. And as we talk about this and we talk about our desire to further diversify our workforce, I want to make one thing perfectly clear to everyone: that all of our employees that have been hired have earned their position through a competitive interview process. They did not get the position for any reason other than they were the best qualified applicant at the end of the day. So I don't want to take anything away from anyone who has a position with the town and make it seem as if they were hired for any other reason, because that's not how we run our hiring processes. So recruitment, what are we currently doing for recruitment? So we post all of our jobs on NeoGov. NeoGov is the platform that we use for employees for applicants to apply for jobs for us. Depending on the position, we may also post on a variety of sites such as LinkedIn, Indeed, School of Government. We may send some stuff out over job-specific listservs. We may also post on local job boards like CPCC, SPCC, UNCC, PHR, if it's something like some of our summertime positions that may be best suited for like high school seniors. We may post those on PeachJar, which is through CMS. And then we also do attend some job fairs, not very many because we don't have time, and most of them are attended by the recruiter for the police department. The police department also regularly attends the basic law enforcement training classes. I know Chief Pennington's already talked about that, and he and our recruitment officer, plus we have officers who teach at those classes, and they're constantly recruiting when they're there, telling people about Matthews and the great work that we're doing here. So what else can we do? So if we have additional funding, we could advertise more places more frequently. We could pay for priority job postings on job boards. So to post on something like LinkedIn or Indeed or somewhere like that, it's typically between $250 to $500 per posting. Some of those sites are per click. It's hard to truly predict what it's going to cost, but you set a budget and it will only exceed that budget by 5% per day. So we only have a $3,000 recruitment budget. And that includes postings, that includes anything we'd need for a job fair. it for the HR budget for the entire town. So with additional money, we could also, it would be nice to do adjustments to our pay plan and to potentially introduce hiring incentives. Recruitment is great, but if we don't have the salary and the benefits to attract people, then the recruitment efforts become a lot harder, or they end up being done, to not really gain a whole lot. So also, if we had an additional person, we could attend more job fairs. We could allow that person to go out and make meaningful community connections to, again, get, the town of Matthews as an employer out in front of people more often. We could have a person that's dedicated to going and finding talent and bringing them to us instead of just posting and hoping that someone finds the job. Another thing that I'm interested in, and I know the chiefs are as well, is offering trainee programs. So, employees, especially in police and fire, have to have credentials and be certified before they can be a police officer or firefighter. Those programs can be expensive. They require a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and it's really hard for people to try to work a job and go through those programs. But there's not everyone can just quit their job and go, for a certification program, especially, when we're talking about finding and hiring minorities. So offering a trainee program where we could not just sponsor them through the program, but they could actually be our employee as they go through either the BLET program or as they go through the fire program at the local community colleges, actually pay them, match them up with a police officer or firefighter that can help them with a study time if they're struggling in one of the subjects, or, just be cheerleaders and supporters of them. And then they're going to have a much more vested interest in us once they complete those programs successfully, because we've invested in them first. I think that would be a very powerful tool for us to be able to bring people in the door who are interested in the job, but just can't make it work, not having full-time employment while they go through those programs.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
Do the college job boards like CPCC and UNCC, do they charge for listings?
They do. Most of the time, they do not charge.
Okay.
I also have a question too, Tanya.
Okay.
Did you say the budget for the whole town is $3,000? Is that what I heard?
That's the money that's in HR for recruitment.
Why we have never put more than $3,000? That's not enough to do nothing with. No wonder we're not getting nobody. I mean, hey, we give more to that to some of the auxiliaries just to help them out. But if we're going to be serious about recruiting, what you're saying is pitiful. No wonder we can't get people to come because nobody's out again. But certainly, that was one of the questions they asked Hazen the other night about recruiting and having more people in HR. And I think it was a valid question that if we're going to be serious about getting minorities and other people to stay here, then we got to put some skin in the game and really be serious about that. But also, I see about this trainee program, especially with the police and fire. Now, if we got people that's with the police and with the fire that the town is sort of backing, when they complete this, would that give them a chance to be hired as a full-time fire or police officer?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I see this program is, and through conversations, of course, with the chiefs, is they are our employee when they start BLET or the fire program, and then we support them through it. We buy their books, we buy their uniforms, we pay the tuition gets waived if we're sponsoring them.
Okay.
So, and then once they complete the program and are certified, they are no longer a trainee and they're our full-time employee. So long as they achieve the certification, they're guaranteed a job with us when they're done.
All right. Thank you, Tanya.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, so next slide, retention. Why do employees stay? So research done by the Society for Human Resources Management says that these are the main 5, it's a big survey that they did, the main 5 factors that people stay with their employers is respectful treatment of all employees at all levels, compensation and pay, trust between employees and senior management, job security, and opportunities to use their skills and abilities to work. So the reason I have the top 2 in bold is those are the 2 that I want to talk the most about today. I think number 3 kind of folds into number 1. If you have, respectful treatment of all employees at all levels, then trust to senior management should kind of follow right along with that. And the other 2 are very important, but we only have a certain amount of time tonight. So as far as respectful treatment of employees at all levels, so what we're currently doing is diversity training. Sorry, my notes got mixed up. So we're currently doing yearly diversity training of all employees, and we have signed a contract with True Access to deliver the training this year. We're doing 4 training sessions. All employees will go through a 4-hour session. So True Access is the 2 trainers that we'll have are True Pettigrew, who's the owner of the company, and then also Tony Godwin is going to come with him. And Tony is the former police chief of Cary, North Carolina. The 2 of them, after the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, True, who is an African-American man, went to the Cary Police Department and wanted to find out what he could do to not let this happen to his son, to form a partnership with the police department to help his community, have a better relationship with the police. So they started a program 6 years ago that is doing amazing work up around the Triangle area. So True and Tony are going to come down and do training for us. We are going to dedicate 2 of those 4 sessions to police, just because of the hyper focus in the United States on police right now. We think it's very important that they have a session of their own where they can truly talk about what they're facing. The content will be the same. The common language that's developed will be the same as the rest of the town. But through talking to True and Tony, we think it's very important for police to be focused on police issues. So 2 of the 4 sessions will be for police. The other 2 will be for the rest of the town employees. The other thing we started last fall, late summer, early fall, was including a diversity and inclusion video in all of our orientation sessions. That's been limited because of COVID, because orientation's weird right now. But once we get through all of this, we're going to have all the new people that have started back, and we're going to do all of the training that they did not receive in their orientation that's normally in orientation to catch them up. And one of those things is this diversity and inclusion video, because we want to set a level playing field when employees are coming into the organization, so they know what we expect of them, and they can get a good start. With additional people, we could do an even more comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. I don't want you to think that I'm not working on that, because I absolutely am. But if we had someone who was dedicated to some of this work, it could be even better. Obviously, that would include the annual training. The other thing that I'm already looking into are the periodic check-ins. So through True Access, they do what are called RAP sessions. They started them in barbershops in the Triangle area, and they have seen amazing, amazing stuff come out of those. And as a result, Cary asked, could we do this with our employees? And so Cary's been doing them. Holly Springs does them. There's several towns up around that Triangle area that currently do these. So we're looking into them and seeing if that's the right fit for Matthews. If it's not, that's okay. We'll find something else. I do believe that periodic check-ins and safe spaces to talk about these sometimes difficult subjects is very important, and it needs to go beyond one time a year in a training room. So also with additional people, again, those community connections can be very powerful if we have time, someone has time to go out and make them and truly make them meaningful. it can be very impactful for the town, I believe.
Tanya,
Yes, sir.
when is that scheduled for the town employees?
So we do not have it scheduled yet, simply we have the contract signed. It's happening. But we're waiting to see what the governor does with phase 2 versus phase 3 on September 11th, because I believe this training is much more impactful than it is on Zoom, in person versus on Zoom. So I really, really, really want to have this training in person if we can, which we can't right now with the 25-person limit. But if all that changes on September 11th, then we'll get it scheduled ASAP. If something happens and we don't go to phase 3, I will go ahead and get it scheduled on Zoom because I don't want to delay it much longer.
Also, I'm a firm believer, if we're going to have our employees do something, and certainly as commissioner, I know the last time I was there, I wanted to participate, and I thought it was very meaningful as us as commissioner that we'd be a part of whatever we are giving to the town. We are asking them, if we ask them for diversity training. Certainly, I would like to be as a commissioner, and I would like, and I hope that my fellow counterparts would participate as well too, maybe just for the mayor and the commission.
I'll let Hazen comment on that.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, member of the board, that would be up to y'all. And if that's something y'all are interested, then we would reach out to this group and figure out a way to make it work.
It's just 7 of us, and I know we did the last time, and I thought it was very beneficial to the commissioners so that we can say that we know what the town is giving to all of the employees because we've been through it as well too. Mayor, I can tell you, I want to be a part of it. I don't know about anybody else, but I do.
Can we go back to a full gallery view? Take the presentation down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other questions for Tanya? I have a question. Probably should know this as mayor, but I don't. Tanya, how many people work in our HR department? Are you the HR department, or do we have, how many?
So I'm the HR director, and then we have an HR specialist. And then Chelsea, the lady that sits at the front desk in the morning, is also a part of HR. So she's part-time. So it's 2.5 of us. Chelsea mainly manages our dental, and then the rest of her duties are all front desk duties. So.
And by nature of this presentation, do you think you need additional people?
Well, it depends on what the board's desire is of how deep you want HR to dive into this work. If you just want me to post jobs a few more places, or give me money to post jobs at these places all the time, then Susanna can manage that. If we're wanting better attendance at job fairs, if we're wanting someone who can actually make meaningful connections in the community and elsewhere to attract people to come to Matthews, then I would need another person to do that.
Who is Susanna?
Susanna's my HR specialist.
Have we ever met her?
Probably. Susanna used to sit at the front desk in the mornings.
Is she full-time?
She is.
And is there any thought of bringing Chelsea on full-time?
I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer that question because it would require other half of a job. And currently Chelsea's in school. So Chelsea doesn't have a desire to be full-time right now. So there'd be a lot of things that would come into play there.
So I had a conversation with Hazen over the weekend, and we may be doing this, but is it possible with current staffing levels for us to do some recruitment at historically Black colleges and things of that nature?
Maybe. I don't want to say no, but I can, Like, it's something I would like for us to do, but Suzanne and I have extremely busy plates. So I don't want to make that commitment to you, and then, we don't have the time to make it happen. So
I'd like to jump in here a little bit too, because it is, we didn't do a lot in last year's budget, right? We left a lot of things on the plate. Some of it's because of COVID, but raises is a great example of that, by the way. But and Becky helps reinforce this to me. Tanya is working 55 hours a week, right? I mean, it's probably a prescription for long-term burnout. And I remember when CJ was going down this route, I thought, someday you hit that burnout, you just come in, you give your resignation, you walk out the door because you are burned out, you're past redemption, whatever, So I want to be, and Tanya and I talked about this too. I don't think many of us, including me, by the way, have a full appreciation of, I don't know, let's say counseling a problem. You have a problem employee, and what's the process? Because we don't just arbitrarily throw people out. I mean, there's a process, and all this takes time. So we could talk about some more at the planning conference, at the mini conference if you guys wanted to. We could put together kind of what Tanya does already. We have never approached Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea is, I'll just say, a lovely person to talk to. I enjoy her very much. I don't know what her interests are. I don't know what her skills are. We haven't developed any kind of job description that would say, okay, we got to make sure somebody can do this. But from a personable standpoint, Chelsea hits on all cylinders from a personality standpoint.
I guess anyone from staff could answer this, but we've talked about in the past buying software like Paycom. Would that take a lot of the grunt work, for a better word, out of Tanya's, your staff's job?
So it would definitely help. Again, what I don't want to do is overpromise you, because what I'm intending for that system to also be able to do is to allow us to do things we're not currently doing. With the systems we've looked at, it'll allow us to revamp our review of our employees, which really needs to be revamped. There's a lot of work that a new program would allow us to do. While Suzanne is going to save a lot of time in certain areas, it's going to create more work for her in other areas of managing the system and making sure things work properly. So a system will give her more time to do other work we haven't been having time to get to. That's also very important.
Yeah, I think the sell point on that software is that you're pushing some of that work off on the employees.
Yeah.
They call you and say, how much vacation do I have left? And they can just look on their phone and determine it automatically, or whatever, and many other questions. How much money do I have in my whatever?
To Mayor Hazen, that was one of my things when I was on the board earlier. We did not have an HR department, and it just blew my mind that a town our size, and back then I think we were like 140 some employment without an HR. So Tanya, I know 2 years is not a lot of time to really get a HR, and with all the employees that we have, I think, Hayes, you said 157 employees now, and that it is. So what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is we don't have enough HR staff to do what a town size of 157 employees, to make sure that we are actually recruiting and doing the things that the HR department. I think what I'm hearing, and I appreciate you sharing that information. If we're gonna be serious about HR and about the town of Matthews and recruiting, and make sure that we are diverse, because one of the things is, me as a person of color, when I look at the whole gamut where we make up of the town, we're lacking. We're lacking in diversity. Now, I can tell you, Hazen was right. In the last 5 years, we have made a strong effort in trying to make it, but majority of that come through the police department. And I always tell you, I can see that Clark has done a wonderful job and is doing a wonderful job in making sure. But we got 5 other department heads that need to get on board as well to make sure they're diverse in their departments as well as Clark. And I don't want the whole soul of the town of Matthews to rest on the police department, which I know that's a hot item, but there's other parts of the town that need to show some action plan as to diversity. And Tanya, my hat's off to you with the limited staff of what you got. It's unfathomable. I mean, because even as a church, with my church side, I knew I had to have an HR department, even with my staff or the board that I have at the church. You got to have that. We're talking about people with retirement or salary, harassment, and making sure that you're hiring and paying and people doing things right. You just got to have it. And so that's my take, that we're just understaffed. And I think the board just need to look at finding some money to, if we're going to do this, let's do it right and put some money in it to make sure that we can do what we need to do to be fair and equitable. And that was what I ran on. That's what I stand on today. Being fair and equitable, and make sure that Matthews do what we need to do is right.
And if I can just jump in here, I just want to say, I just speaking to the other department heads, and I've been here a couple more years than Tanya as well. I do think that this is important to all of our department heads. I think that they're all very committed to this, but a lot of it does just come down to resources. So when a department head is reviewing the applications that they've received, that pool is already kind of locked. And so then they're looking for the most qualified applicant out of that pool. And so I think what we would love to see, whether that's, again, discussed further at the mini planning conference, or what we can eventually do with the department, is to bring somebody in to really drive that effort in on the front end and really be focusing on building as diverse of a qualified applicant pool as you can possibly receive for every position. And then it gives the department head, in coordination with HR, the ability to still be selecting the most qualified person for the job, but you've got more to choose from, hopefully. But without somebody who can really put in that effort, it takes time. I think sometimes it's like, oh, we'll just go post, but to log in and create accounts and create the ad and pay to post it and all of that, it's not unusual for that to take an hour on a single site just to get something posted. They then have to review it, and there's back and forth. And so it just kind of eats up your day very, very quickly. And so having somebody who's got the budget and the time and attention to make it a core priority of their job, I think it really just kind of rounds out the efforts. And then in theory, we should be getting the outcomes that we hope to find on the other side. But ultimately, it's just about whoever's the best and the brightest. And the further we can reach into those professional communities, the more likely we are to find, super qualified people for all of our positions. So it just takes time and effort. But I just want to be clear that I do think our departments understand that and all very much want that. We are just dealing with limited resources right now.
Commissioner McCool, did you have a comment, sir?
I had kind of a question. From what I'm hearing, there's only kind of like pros to adding someone to the HR department. What's the holdback for not adding an extra person? Is it purely money, making the money work, or is there a combination of other things?
Okay.
Go ahead, Hazel.
Well, it does. There's so many competing needs, right? I think about paving, right, as a poster child, or a deputy fire chief. I think we just got to be sensitive to that. The budget, it was tough this year. It's going to be tough next year. The other thing that we spent some time talking about, and the police department has done some work on this just a couple of years ago. I think we were ahead of the pack. We went out and did a pay classification plan, and the board said, we'd like to be at 60% of market. That's a beautiful thought, really. You can become an employer of choice. I think we were at I bet we were the first town or community to do that, because since then, and Mint Hill's a good example, a lot of them have gone back and done that. And we now in police department starting pays for officers, we are, is it 14 out of 17?
15 out of 17.
We're ahead of Pineville. And who's
I don't have it sitting in front of me, but yes. And we do have to look at what, I know Tanya cautioned me on this when we did our regional pay study. We have to look at what we looked at in the pay classification study we did a year ago. But yes, Pineville, even Mint Hill's above us now. And I'm trying to think of the other one. I can't think off the top of my head. I apologize.
So, and I know we're dumping a bunch of stuff on y'all, but we are going to come back to y'all. So what I'm trying to say is, we can have all the people in here we want, but you got to have a competitive salary. And I would say if you're a person of color, my guess is you're going to have a great candidate. You're going to have some offers on the table. And so I think we got a great organization top to bottom throughout the department heads. I think that's our big plus. But pay, particularly if you're younger, pay is important. And so what we want to do to you guys in December or January is come back. One of the thoughts we had, because there's a 3% pool, and instead of giving that out for performance review, just raise the whole salary schedule by 3%. And what that would do, that would be everybody that's performing at their job, meeting expectations, they would all go up 3%. Even the people doing the greatest job in the world, they'd only go up 3%. But what we're doing is moving ourselves in the market. And what we do is we'd end up being in police. We'd be just below Cornelius. We go above, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 other ones. We're still below Cornelius. Even if we went up 4%, we'd be below Cornelius. And I think if we went up 5%, we'd still be below Cornelius. But that is just one data point, is police officers starting pay. But it's kind of a good litmus test of what we're competing against. Besides wanting to do all these other things right, that's a piece of the puzzle.
I've got a question that I suspect is running through the minds of some other folks on this board that have been around for a while, and it's this. I don't doubt for a second that Tanya works very hard and is working 55 hours a week, but we didn't even have an HR department a few years ago. So how did we survive a few years ago with nobody, and now we have to have 3 or 3.5 or 4 people, and we had nobody a couple of years ago?
That's a great question. And I was here when the boards were very fiscally conservative. I remember when Mayor Taylor was just really kind of beating us down about this. And my view was we were lucky. And it was a decentralized model. And so department heads were hiring who they wanted to. And I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, but I think some of this implicit bias stuff that we've become super aware of, it could have been going on. Name a department because we didn't have professionals like, no, wait a second, you're not asking the right question. So I feel much better about we're in a much safer liability wise and probably ethic wise. We're asking the better questions instead of, and I'm not saying the Good Old Boy Network was out there 100%, but we've got a better process now.
So this work was all being done. It was being done by Becky and the department heads.
Well, before Becky, it was department heads. Jamie kind of acted in that role, but Jamie was an ex-manager. Becky was our first true HR professional. Everybody else was just kind of doing the best we could, I would say.
I got you.
And just to clarify, we did have an HR specialist who had already been on the job for a number of years when I was hired back in early 2016. And so that HR specialist role does go back a ways. That was a full-time role for quite a while. But essentially it was paper processing. It was the address updates. It was the retirement updates. It was coordinating interview processes. But, I think it also comes down to, like Hazen said, that level of awareness that can evolve with people. So think about the difference between equality and equity. So, if I think there was a long-standing belief in HR, well, if we just post it, then it's up to our applicants to find the job and put in for it. And if somebody doesn't put in for it, then it's their loss. We just go with who we have. that would be equality. But if you think about the equity, that may involve a little bit more of a deeper reach out into the communities that we're particularly interested in drawing from, whether that be professional organizations, particular minority organizations. And so that takes just that extra bit of work and funding in order to do that, to get the results that you're really looking for. And that's just something that I think is evolving in the HR profession over, the last number of years as well. So we have had, some full-time work in this area for a while. So it's not from zero to 3.5. Just want to make sure that we're clear on the staffing that we had. And when I was hired, it was expected that my job would be probably 50-50 on the HR versus the assistant town manager side. And it turned out that HR took up a bit more time there for the first couple years that I was here, which allowed us to create Tanya's position.
And the other comment I want to make that I think Hazen's made a couple times jokingly is our October mini planning conference is rapidly becoming a really big deal. And we may be expanding the number of hours to discuss all this stuff in October. Are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, Tanya, can we reverse engineer this a little bit? And let me ask you, let me spell these out first. What is our normal turnover? So, do we have such a turnover that, by God, we got to have someone recruiting all the time? So what's our turnover? What is our retirement rate here? So, in my mind, is it justifying having a full-time human resource person because our turnover is so low and the retirement is sparse? But maybe that's not the case right now. So my point would be is, would we not look to third-party freelance folks that would look at going out to colleges and technical schools and doing different things and beating the bushes for applicants versus having it done in-house? Because I'm just wondering, really retirement versus turnover versus having enough for that additional person.
So I haven't paid with COVID. I haven't paid a lot of attention to some of these statistics I normally pay attention to lately. And unfortunately, our current system does not just pull these statistics for me. So I can't tell you exactly what our turnover rate or retirement rate is right now, but I can tell you today, Susanna came into my office and gave me a high five because for the first time since I've been at the town for 2 years, we have public works fully staffed. The police department is never fully staffed.
Right.
The fire department has had some turnover recently. We are constantly hiring. What we're hiring for, obviously, ebbs and flows. I hope now public works is good for a little while, but we're always going to be looking for police officers and telecommunicators. And having more people out there that can do the work just increases our chances of improving our applicant pools and getting us those even better candidates.
Chief Pennington.
I just want to kind of back up to, first off, thank you, Commissioner Whitley, for the encouragement that you're providing me and to the police department. But I just want to reinforce there's nothing that happens in that police department as far as hiring or discipline that Tanya does not have some input in. So her time is so stretched and it's so thin because she has so many different responsibilities. And there are 86 employees, or at least 86 funded locations or positions inside the police department that Tanya sits on every hiring process with me. Every police officer that gets hired, we do a 1-on-2, I guess. They come in, they sit with Tanya and I, and we get to interview them. So I can't say enough about all the progress that we've done in the police department has been because of Tanya's assistance. And I do want to include Hazen and Becky in that because we've been doing that since the day I walked in the door. And I think it's paid off significantly. The way we do our hiring process, the review of our questions, the review of our application process, down to the 1-on-1s or the 1-on-2s, whatever you want to call them with Tanya and I think that's why we are getting such positive employees or good employees coming in. You saw today we swore two new employees in this morning. There was supposed to be a third, but unfortunately, due to some travel and those issues, we'll probably be swearing him in a couple of weeks. But again, it's a very diverse pool. So I just wanted to reinforce that. I know Rob and I have had, Chief Kinneberg and I have had several conversations about the work that Tanya and that HR department does for us. They are stretched thin. Just between the fire and the police department's hiring and discipline process, we can't say how much we appreciate them.
I appreciate that, Chief. And this is my take, and this is where I'm sitting. And Hazen, you said it before we had HR. When it came to filling these positions, the head of those departments were applicants and look at it, and so what John Urban asked was true. We don't have a big turnover here, and so once a position get filled with younger people, that position is going to be there. And so what I see, and it don't take a long to look, if you look at the whole gamut of the town of Matthews, that all of the head departments, the assistants departments, and even down to the third level are all white males or females. Now the town has done a good job in making sure that we have qualified people to fill these positions. But before Tanya and Becky, now I have full confidence in both of them. And Becky and I came on together, and I can read people pretty good and making sure we do, but do what's right and do the right thing. But when you look at our town of Matthews and where all of these positions and these good top paying jobs are all by all white male, especially in your department, Chief, and that's you have promoted some good people, but what Hazen said, the decks were stacked before we had an HR to fill these positions with the top, the assistant, and maybe the third person down are all white. And we don't have any people of color making good salaries in the town of Matthews. And when I'm talking about good salaries, I'm talking about $80,000 a year job. And I don't have no problem with nobody making no money. Let me say that right there. Listen, you do it, you deserve it. I have no problem. The problem is that when we have openings or when we have an opportunity to fill some of these high-paying jobs that are qualified. I want to say that again. There are qualified people of color that can fill and be an assistant to these departments or to move up. Now, just like Hazen said at the community forum, at the bottom, we have 22 people of color in the town of 157, but they all at the bottom of the scale are either part-time. You know, that's not good enough. I think we can do better. I know we can do better. So when we going forward, if there is an opening that pays good, I think these department heads have to look at making sure that we have a qualified person of color that can be competitive to fill some of these slots. Now, you can't just say, and this is something I've heard all my career as a person of color, even on the highway patrol, when I was trying to go up in the rank, we want the best qualified. And I know I prepared myself and had to do extra to make sure that I got where I got in the highway patrol. And I know given an opportunity, if people of color are given an opportunity in the town of Matthews to express themselves and they are qualified, and I think you ought to make sure you give them opportunity to fill some of these. But the things just go on and keep saying, we don't have the money, we don't have the staff. I know we all tight with stuff, but I have, and I want y'all to hear this, all the department heads, I have full confidence in you. I've met and I know you personal. Other than you, Tanya, I hadn't really got to know you personal, but everybody else, I know and I talk to, and I consider them to be friends. And and talking with them, I believe they want to do the right thing, given the opportunity to do the right thing. So I want you to know I support all of you. I don't have no problem with you making the money you're making. I do have a problem when Black folks don't get some of this. I think John said it the other night at the community. Listen, y'all, the pie is baked. All I want is a piece of pie. Don't y'all get all the pie. Give me a slice of it. I give the people of color a piece of pie. do what you're doing, but hey, listen, let's give a piece of pie to the people of color. And let's do what's right because we pay taxes. And I know it's hard because up until 4.5 years ago, there was no person in the back room that would talk for people of color. I wouldn't be, if I hadn't run, I wouldn't be talking here tonight. Y'all wouldn't have nobody to talk to, but I'm here. I'm part of the team. And I appreciate y'all having this discussion. It's given me an opportunity, but I want my county commissioner to know that we cannot just sit. It's not just a black thing for me talk. It's all of us because we represent the whole town of Matthews. All of us have a responsibility to make sure that when we look at the dynamics and Chief, I'm giving you kudos because I sit and talk to you in your office. I see your action plan. I know what you want to do. I know where you want to go. And I'm supportive of you more than I am anybody else because you have came in and saw what was needed and you put it to work. Faith without works is dead. You working, and I appreciate it. And so I'm committed. I'm committed to all of you. I just want y'all to do the right thing. Just do the right thing, and we're good. And I just want my counterpart to know that this ain't just a black thing for me. It's all of us commissioners. It's all of us have a responsibility to everybody treated. Male, female, black, Jew, Gentile. We all supposed to be treated fair, and that's what we're standing on. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for listening to it.
I do want to make a quick response. So I appreciate everything Commissioner Whitley said, and I can use two examples. So when we did the police chief hiring process, we cast a very wide net. And the second candidate was an African-American out of Onslow County. And that's also true of the finance director. So there was, or at least in those two examples, a diversified pool. But again, most qualified people were Beth in one case and Chief Pennington in the other.
Larry, I'm sure you're not just specifically talking about black. I'm sure you're open to Indian, Asian, Hispanic, the whole realm. Am I not correct? Or you?
I did say people of color, but I did say black folks too, John. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. I'm talking about people of color because I think, correct me, Clark, you had one Hispanic in your department now?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I know how important it is this day and time. You need somebody Hispanic language that can speak Spanish and that can communicate. I even got one on my staff in the daycare so that we can have that as well too. But you're right, John. It's not just black, but certainly that black people as well too, John. That's what I'm speaking on.
Commissioner Miller, you have a comment?
Yeah, it should be noted also that we did hire a black human resource director, and that's a department head. So we would have had, how many departments heads are there? 8. So we would have had 2 or 25% black. And after she was hired, I don't remember how long she lasted, maybe a year or whatever, but
7 months.
How many?
7 months.
Okay. Well, it's not like they didn't try. As I recall, I think Becky hired her. I don't know all the details because we don't interface with human resources that much, but I just it wasn't discussed, and it should be noted that there was another one.
She was not a department head. She was a manager. Is that correct, Hazen?
Yeah, so we worked pretty darn hard to try to get our first full-time HR person, and what we landed on a compromise in order to get the board to approve it at a lower salary as an HR manager. And then after Kamala left, we went back to the board and said, look, we got to have some more money. Now, could we have kept Kamala with more money? I don't know. She went back to the Charlotte Police Department. But that's how it evolved.
I'd like to make a comment, just listening to this conversation. I used to have a boss in the corporate world, and we had factories all over the country and world, and he'd tell me, he'd say, Higdon, go in there and professionalize this organization. We're doing stuff that's not professional enough. And I think having a standalone HR department is a more professional way to run a town of our size than having the department heads hire their people directly. So I think that is a more professional, leading way that towns that do things right run things. So I'm certainly in support of our HR department. Are there any other comments or questions for Tanya or Becky or Hazen or the Chiefs or Larry?
But did Tanya finish her presentation?
Tanya, you finished?
I did have one more slide. We've kind of already talked about it. It was around raises and moving our pay plan. Because one of the questions, Hazen's already talked about the study that the police department's done just on the police officer position alone. And I'm pretty sure we'd find a similar picture in most of our positions. And, especially in some of our lower paid positions where we lose people often, like telecommunicator, they leave us for 50 cents because they're just trying to put food on the table. Sure. So our benefits can be great and everything else, but if our salary is not competitive, then none of that other stuff matters with some of these positions.
If you want to go ahead and put that slide up, go ahead.
Okay, I can do that.
I didn't know you had any more, sorry.
No, it's okay. So it's just right there. And then the other thing I was going to briefly talk about was pay incentives. So the study that the chief did, 12 out of 17 departments offer incentives for education. So if you get a degree, you get a pay raise. If you come in with a degree, you can get a pay raise from the hiring rate because of that. And, then I also have interest in talking to not just police, but all of our departments about different certifications that it would make sense for us to give employees incentive pay for, because it's another way to keep people. And a question I get a lot when people don't like the salary we're able to offer them, hiring is, all right, well, what have your raises look like over the last couple of years? Because they're kind of wanting to see, is it good? Is it consistent? And am I going to be able to move up once I'm there? So that's really the last little bit that I was going to talk about. But I feel like we've touched on it a good bit already.
I have one comment on that. My concern, and I think this probably affects Chief Kinenberg more than anybody, is that a lot of people come here, get hired by Matthews, and we pay to get them fully certified, and they say thank you and quit and go to Charlotte or whatever. So we've paid for all their training, and when they get fully certified, they leave. Again, falling back on my years in the corporate world, there were stipulations where the town or the business, the corporation may pay for additional education or training, but if the person quit before a certain amount of time, they would have to pay all or a portion of that back to the town. So I would like to have some kind of safeguard in that way. I wouldn't want to, pay for people to get further education or get all these certifications, and then as soon as they get them, quit. Then we've just paid to educate them, and then they leave.
So, Mayor, we did actually put that in the personnel policy with regards to specifically education, not training. If we give someone education reimbursement, we have them sign a 136th agreement. So the debt is not technically paid back to the town until they've worked for us for 36 months after receiving that money.
Fantastic. I thought I remember that. Yeah, that's probably more appropriate for education, but I know it's a continuing concern on certifications in police and fire, because that's a lot of certifications to get, and people get all certified up and then improve their resume and leave.
Yeah, the biggest example I have of that right now is telecommunicator and police department, because Chief Pennington has put in a requirement that they get sheriff standard certified. So we pay a lot of money for their medical to get to that point, and then we send them to school. So it's time out of the office plus the cost, and then they get certified and they leave us and go to Union County for $1 more an hour. So I mean, it comes back to pay. We just have to compete with those around us so people aren't leaving once they get the certifications.
Any other questions for Tanya or anybody else on staff tonight? Hazen, is this all we had for 5:30?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess we can take a little break here. Maybe everybody log back in at 6:50 or 6:55, something like that. Sound good? Now I can go eat dinner. All right. See you in a little bit.